Hello guys, and today we have a lot of very important things to discuss, and all of them expose the weakness of the Kremlin regime. Last night, hundreds of Ukrainian drones traveled to different military sites inside Russia, and lots of their cities had to cancel the flights, including Moscow, the capital of the Russian Federation. And the Prime Minister of Armenia, who traveled to meet with Putin, could not land because of these drones. And I have nothing against the Prime Minister, but I believe he witnessed himself these failures of the Kremlin, and I cannot even imagine how angry Putin was that his failures were exposed to the leader of Armenia. And the drones were doing that job. We targeted the chemical plant in Nizhny Novgorod, and for the first time since the beginning of Russia's oil refining industry trouble, we targeted Lukoil oil and gas platform in the Sea of Caspian. That is really far away, that is difficult, but possible if you know that the only working peace plan is to defeat Russia. And more Russians are dissatisfied with the problems they encounter. So people in Kursk, and that is an active war zone inside Russia, went out on protest because the Kremlin decided to stop giving them payments which they began receiving in 2024 as an active war zone. A lot of people lost their houses, lost the comforts of life, once again, because Putin and those who support him invited war to dozens of the Russian regions. And if you are attentive, you might have noticed that during these months there are more and more reports about protests in very different parts of the Russian Federation, and that is a good sign. So let's discuss all of this happening literally during just one day in the Russian Federation that is on the brink of the collapse. And no, Trump cannot save it. My name is Anna, I'm from Ukraine, I'm in Ukraine, and if you want to see Putin in The Hague, subscribe, and I'm sure we will discuss that on the channel sometime really soon. Share these videos, like, please help us spread the truth. So let's begin with this really loud night for the Russian Federation, when dozens of their regions need to turn on the air raid alert, need to try and fight against the Ukrainian drones so that the Russian population can film tons of videos. Honestly, I do not understand why they are so excited when they see these fires and explosions. There is something indeed very mysterious about the Russian soul, but one thing that I understand, they are lucky. Ukrainians follow the rules of the Geneva Convention, and we only target the evil legitimate military sites. So target number one was a chemical plant in Nizhny Novgorod region, and you may prepare this really long list of Russian regions that are a war zone. That is a chemical plant Ekron that works with ammonium and other stuff which is necessary for various explosives. So destroying such facilities, we save a lot of innocent lives. Another important target was oil and gas platform located very far away from the front lines and actually in quite a problematic place in the Sea of Caspian. And Russia has some of such platforms that operate literally in the sea. That's super important for the logistics, for the production. And this one was finally visited by the Ukrainian drones, and now it had to halt its operations. Lukoil is the company that was once the symbol of the Russian wealth, and now is the symbol of the Russian decline and problems that they do have inside their collapsing economy with stagflation, inflation, and so on. And this empty Russian budget is not just numbers, is not just forecast, it's the reality. And the reason why the Kremlin stopped payments to the people in Kursk region, you know that this is a territory that was visited by the Ukrainian armed forces, not just drones or missiles, but in general. We may speak that Voronezh, Kursk, Belgorod, Rostov, Lipetsk, these are active war zones. And by the way, lots of Russians move from these regions, not because they are endangered by Ukrainians, but also because Russian aircraft sometimes keep dropping bombs on their own buildings when they are flying like crazy to destroy Ukrainian kindergartens. So people in Kursk went out on the protests because, well, they live in very different and very difficult conditions. Of course, they did not predict something similar back in 2022 when they also cheered for the special military operation, but could not forecast that this special military operation would continue on their territories. And in Ukraine, people who suffer from the Russian invasion, they do get support from the state, but in Russia, the situation is very different. And these people went out on protest begging Putin to help them, but I'm sure he won't hear them because they have a huge budget deficit. It seems to me that right now the Russian Federation is a country with this worst budget situation in the world. At least how quickly it deteriorates and sums up. For that, subscribe to witness the collapse of the Russian Federation. Trust me, it's happening, and the military talk about that. The military talk about this failed forecast, totally wrong intelligence information. Check this video on my Anna Danilchuk channel to know more. So, if you are attentive, once again, you see that there are protests on the Far East, in Irkutsk, in Siberia, in Sakha, in Bashkortostan, and this is a good sign, at least if you are on the side of the good and you want to live in the world that still follows the international law. And perhaps let's finish with this beautiful update from Moscow, the heart of the evil empire, where they had a loud night again, and they cancelled in the capital of the Russian Federation alone 130 flights for hours. So these are Russian oligarchs, businessmen who spend this night in airports listening to the explosions and understanding more and more that not just the Blitzkrieg failed, but all of this Russian Federation vision failed of their future, of their imperial reconstruction. And trust me, this Frankenstein will collapse. What's interesting, among the flights that were cancelled was the flight of the Prime Minister of Armenia, who, by the way, distances himself very beautifully from Putin, but he planned to come to Moscow for a visit and could not land. And I believe he will say a lot about this back in Armenia, in Azerbaijan, and many other, former republics that the Kremlin wanted to control, at least with the fake image of, this super strong imperial center. But no, they cannot control their borders. Kursk region protesters, they cannot control their airspace, cancelled flights in Moscow, they cannot control their seas, Black Sea Fleet, Shadow Fleet, and now a platform, oil and gas platform of Lukoil in Caspian Sea. And I believe sometime soon they won't be able to control what is happening inside the Kremlin. Subscribe to my other channel, Anna Danilchuk. Also follow me on social media platforms, X, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, Discord. All the links in the description of this video, same as the links to our merch shop. And there you can find a lot of beautiful Christmas presents. They are meaningful. They will turn you into the ambassadors of Ukraine. And I believe that is an honorary position in the world that is so chaotic. And I'm always grateful for that. Thank you for buying me coffees, becoming my patrons and sponsors of the channels, but most importantly, thank you for standing with Ukraine, and hopefully see you this Saturday for our live conversation. Slava Ukraini!